for my story that his son and I were friends, and we would go down to his factory and drive the fork truck around. So that was a lot of fun, and then I would eat sugar cubes out of his conference room. And at that point, I pretty much knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur or a business owner. So I did get involved with the Association of Collegiate Entrepreneurs, and we had 100 chapters on college campuses around the country. So that was a really, really neat experience to help build those chapters and enhance the existing ones. Then I started something called WorldBits Country A Day Calendars. And WorldBits Country A Day Calendars was a page-a-day calendar that explored countries of the world. That was number 3 on Rand McNally's bestseller list in 1995. And so that was kind of my first baby that I saw on the shelves. So that was really neat experience. Let's see here. I had a little bit of this challenge before, and still having it again. Let's see if this will get me out of it. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So the WorldBits Country Day Calendar, I had that, and then the international channel wanted to put our put the calendar into a computer screensaver. So we started producing the WorldBits Country Day screensaver, and countries would fly. We'd have the countries you could highlight. Each time they would come across the screen, you kind of see where they're located with other facts, and I meant to say that about the calendar as well. The way this calendar worked is each country was highlighted for 2 days. First day had facts and information, and the second day had a map of where the country was located with other facts. So that was, again, kind of my first product. Then I went on to create what's called Screenshot software and produce computer screensavers and multimedia CDs for corporate marketing. Our clients were anybody from NBC to American Express, Citibank, Compaq, Lucent, Leica, Sony. We did a lot of sports screensavers for the Tampa Bay Rays, the New York Knicks, San Diego Chargers, Super Bowl, Final Four. Let's see, we also have experience talking about that company as well. What I was going to do is do the presentation about product development and then the MVPs, and then I was going to come back to this page and tell you a little bit about some of the ideas on how we got these products off the ground in an MVP format. My biggest company is called Mimeo. Mimeo is an online copy center. So everything that Kinko's does, Mimeo does out of 3 factories in the US and 1 in Europe. And so Mimeo now has about 600 employees, and it's about a $100 million company. So Mimeo has really been my biggest success in terms of the companies that I've started. And you can send your document via the internet. You can, from any computer anywhere in the world, print to Mimeo. You view your document online. You then choose the binding features that you wish, where you want it to go, how many copies you want, and if you submit that up until 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can have that delivered anywhere in the U.S. by 8:30 a.m. the next morning. So that's a pretty cool company. I spoke a lot on college campuses and Rotary clubs and chambers of commerce and things like that. And always people would ask me, well, how did you get started in these companies? I have an idea, but I don't know how to get started. So I then started something called the U.S. Center for Entrepreneurship and launched a dozen classes to teach people how to start and grow their business. And that was a few years back that I did that. The classes did not go well, so I've got some lessons on how I would do that differently now. So there are a lot of lessons with both success and failure. I've had success in failure. And as many people say, more failure than success. But nonetheless, entrepreneurship is a journey, and it's a lot of fun along the road. So that's in a nutshell about what my background is. And what Mike had asked me to do was to give a talk tonight about building an MVP. So what I want to be able to do, I'm really pulling most of this information, actually in this presentation, all the information from his website. Startup is, I'll show you at the end. But let me just go through, and I know Sushi has you muted, so we'll rock through this, and then we'll go into some Q&A. But this presentation will be available, and actually the content, like I said, is all at Michael's website, and that link will be at the end of this. So in building your functional product, nothing succeeds faster than a functional product. Now, however, there are certain times that you can build a good visual representation that can suffice. which I'll tell you about with the WorldBits Country Day calendar, how that and a couple of others did just by graphic design that we handed to Ray McNally. But the quicker you can develop a prototype and show it to prospective customers, the sooner you can collect the feedback necessary to be able to build your MVP. So what are some of the basics for MVPs? Well, you have to collect your product and your market data, and that's a natural. So no matter what, I always like to look at problems and how I can build a solution around those problems. It's great to have a product that has an opportunity, but it's even better to have a product that is solving a problem. And to me, that's where success really lies, in the problems, in the products that solve problems, products or services actually. So you'll start to then brainstorm some of the features with your target market. You'll start to specify, your plan, and then build your first prototype. You'll start to test it and measure it, and then basically rinse and repeat until you have a product that customers love. So it sounds like an easy formula, but one of the most important things that I can emphasize is putting a schedule down. So even though right now you might not think you have a schedule, you can put a schedule down in your head with some of the things that we're going to cover right now. But having due dates for yourself is imperative for an entrepreneur so that you're not slipping. And maybe, the due dates are just goals, but it is imperative that you put an action plan together for, the development of your company. So what do you want to think about and decide on? Well, what is the least amount of functionality that you need to have to test the product with real customers? So think about that. Is that a question or somebody joining us? Either way. Okay. So if somebody does have a question, just chime in. I can't see anything but the presentation, so Sushi, if you can help with that. Yeah.
I think somebody came in or left.
Okay, cool. So then, most importantly, think about what skills you have to help build your MVP. Because in building any company, I always believe in focusing on your strengths, outsource your weaknesses. I hate bookkeeping. That's one of the things, I hate admin like the mail and things like that. In New York City, we were taught to, how can you make your life most efficient? And so people thought it was funny that I would send my, laundry out, your basic laundry to get done. But you know what? That saved me an hour once a week probably. And so I could take that hour and I could put that into something else. So it wasn't very costly. It was just a little convenience factor. But being able to focus on your strengths and outsource your weaknesses, because you're going to be much better at your strengths. So think about that too when you want to build your MVP. So what skills do you need to hire? What is the key value proposition of your product? And what are the key metrics you need to determine whether your product is valuable to users and whether it is getting traction? And then here are the things to do, and there are several of them. Create a use case and a user persona for your product and validate it with actual users. It's great to talk to your family, but I wouldn't even bother talking to your family and friends. What's most important is finding your specific customer that's going to use your product or service, because everybody else is just pulling, from their head, and your family is often going to pull you down because they don't want to see you fail. So I don't talk to my family very much about the companies that I start. In fact, my father hates the fact that I've never really had a real job. I did for 2 years, actually, 2005 to 7. But they would much prefer me to see me in some sort of sustainable job that follows the normal path. And that's great for most people. But for me, it's just been a journey. And if you can't stomach it, you don't want to go into entrepreneurship, because you're going to have many, many ups and many, many, many more downs in trying to go through your journey. So if you do not have a live offering, launch a professionally designed landing page on your domain that states your vision and collects email addresses of interested customers or users. About 4 years ago, Tim Ferriss came out with the book 4-Hour Workweek. The 4-Hour Workweek, in there, he had many good nuggets, but one in particular, which I now will do, is even if you, I would not build out the U.S. Center for Entrepreneurship with 12 classes today. I would put up a web page that looks like I have 12 classes and try and get people there to the website to buy the product. And when they click on the buy button, Google Analytics can track that. And when that pops up, you might have a little thing, a little box that says, hey, this was just a test. Thank you so much for the interest in our products, but right now this is just a test. And we'd love to have you as a beta tester for us. So, please put your name in, and let us, work with you to develop the product that would be best for you. So that's something that I would highly recommend. Going a step further, write one paragraph describing the entire offering that you're trying to create or have created. Write at least 15 different key features that your offering needs to have at launch. Now, when you think about at launch, again, the MVP, you're trying to just get the product out there. Because in today's world, things move so fast that customers may or may not like a feature that you have. And so if you can just get some of the basic features in and be able to, get those initial features that will give you your MVP, that's going to be the best thing for you. So when you think about your features, you really want to try to arrange the features into logical groups. And as you sort those features by placing the most important features at the top of the group list and then the less important ones at the bottom. I'm going to show you a graph in just a second that'll explain that a little bit better. But as you order the groups by placing the most important groups first, you're building a basic development roadmap and you eliminate any less important features. So you can organize features in the most important groups into releases and then identify your first minimum viable product release that is simple. So here's how. When you talk about the group priorities, you may have had all kinds of different features that related to something called user registration. And then lots of other features that you started writing down that related to content creation. And the same with administration, advertising, social media, whatever those characteristics are that you find most important for your product or service. So those groups, as you're writing all those features down, you're also thinking about what's most important. So you've put the MVP features 1, 2, and 3 up at the top, and user registration is the most important thing that you've got in terms of the groups. The second, content creation. The third, administration. The fourth, advertising. And in this case, the fifth, social media. But your other products, for instance, in group number 1, user registration, you've got feature 4 and 5, which would be awesome, but you're probably not going to bring those out till beta. And features 6 and 7 might not even come till, the next phase of development. And so that's kind of how the features and groups relate to one another. And this is a simple way to kind of pull your thoughts together in one graph. So one of the things that's, you probably heard David Parker speak last week is about the 2-week sprints. And I think that's really important because you've got a goal for yourself. And this really came out with Eric Ries in the Lean Startup, his book Lean Startup, where you're really you're trying to pump out those releases as fast as possible and getting user feedback as fast as possible so that you can then put more features into your development process. Some people go 30 days, but if you can go every 2 weeks, that's an excellent way to get feedback, and it's keeping you on track with the goals that you've set for yourself and the due dates that you've set for yourself. So in thinking a little bit further about your groups and features, you'd want to sit down and write 2 sentences describing each group and 2 sentences on the key features in your MVP, and then provide a strategy and time estimate to develop each feature. You want to use basic prototyping tools. There are 3 that are here: Balsamiq, ProtoShare, and DivShot. And each of those on Mike's site have links to where those are at, and they're cool little apps that you can kind of create mock-ups for yourself, and it's a good wireframe type operation. So you develop a non-functional mock-up of your hardware or software. So then developing a proposal for an aggressive 2-week product development sprint to complete a series of key features. So I know this sounds really simple, but that's the basics behind getting your MVP together. And as I mentioned, these are all at startupbiz.com. And this link, startupbiz.com, you'll see on the right-hand side of his site, he has best practices. But the product prototyping development, you'll have to search for that one. So this is the link that you'll be able to use. But I'm sure you can probably search it, just product or prototyping, one of those 2 on there. So those are some of the MVP resources that Michael has put at Startup Biz. and that I wanted to address in this quick presentation. What I'll do now, let's see, we're getting back to, hang on just a second. What I want to do is get back to some of the companies that I started and the products that I got off the ground and how those kind of came to light. So the first one, the WorldBits Country Day Calendar. This actually, one of the things that I did, and each of you have different types of products. I remember one fella wanted to, at the co-creative meeting of Unfounded a couple weeks ago, he had a pretty serious programming in terms of, I think it was having to do with cable television and programming all that. You're certainly not going to be able to do what I'm suggesting in this situation, but for this calendar right here, the WorldBits Country Day Calendar, I simply had a graphic designer, and by the way, each of you should always, one of the first things you should be searching for is a graphic designer, because that you can create logos, you can create mock-ups and things like that, and with the proper graphic design you can have things pop off the screen, and that's really, really important. So one resource that you can write down is called onlinejobs.ph, and onlinejobs.ph are virtual assistants in the Philippines with every different skill you can imagine, and they're pretty well vetted out. Well, you have to vet each individual, but I've had several entrepreneur friends that have used folks from onlineresources.ph, onlinejobs.ph, and you can find a designer there. You can go to Elance, you can go to several different places. Fiverr, many of you might know Fiverr, Fiverr, yeah, .com. And that one, you can actually have people build you a logo or other things for $5. So if you've never been on that website, take a look at that one as well. But what I did with WorldBits, I actually had my designer create 2 pages. The first page the first page had facts and information, and the second page here on the left had a map of where the country is located with other facts. And just on one page, I put a proposal together, and I actually faxed that to the buyer at Rand McNally, and he ordered off of my product spec sheet. So I did not have to build that product until I got the order from him, and then I went into production. So that was pretty cool. If you can do things like that, that'll save you lots and lots of headaches and lots of losses. The other thing about, let's see, what was I going to say about that? Well, I'll come back to it if I remember. With Screenshot, it was kind of similar, where we would have clients, I would go meet with clients, and we would build custom software for them. So for instance, like the New York Knicks, this was, oh gosh, that was probably about there were 35,000 CDs I think that we produced for them, so I usually charge about $2 a CD, so it's probably about a $60,000 job. Well, it took me 15 calls to get to a meeting with the marketing manager for the Knicks, even with a warm referral from another client within the Cablevision family. So one of the lessons that I've always taught is that we had a little saying that it takes 17 points of contact to have a 97% closing ratio. Now, that was our own little mantra, but it just means that don't give up. Don't be a pest either. I would space out my calls and emails, notes and letters. I wouldn't call more than at least every 4 days. But I was a king of postcards. I use postcards a lot, and we do a handwritten message, and you can create a postcard for yourself that just, maybe has your product on the front, your company logo on the front, your picture on the front, no matter what it is. And a handwritten postcard is the first thing that people will receive in the mail, and that'll get past every gatekeeper. So that's a really, really simple lesson using handwritten postcards customized for yourself or your company that can get you past gatekeepers. So that's another lesson in itself. But with these, we would use storyboards. And so rather than going into development, we would use a storyboard that would be kind of our wireframe. And that was just, it even started with me drawing out what I thought was going to be. Later on, we got it to PowerPoint. And what we would do is we would kind of create the look and feel of what we wanted with each client. But then once they signed off on it, then we would go into production, and we would build a wireframe with the developers and from there we would actually build the product as they would approve different launch portions. So I'm a big fan of trying to do things before building them, and but again, a functional product in today's tech world, the websites and apps and things like that, a functional product on those levels, bar none, if you can build that out, that would be the primary thing to do. But in some of these other situations, being able to really get your ideas down on paper and then letting people kind of work with you. And I did that with all of my clients with Screenshot. So every one of them, before we went into development, we had them sign off on kind of a PowerPoint, presentation or storyboard that we worked with. Now Mimeo is a different story. That we had raised money for that one. We raised $5 million angel and friends and family, and then we went into the institutional round. We raised $10 million from Hewlett Packard and $12 million from Draper Fisher. So we were pretty heavily funded, and that we were, that wasn't just show people what we were going to do. That was actually doing it. So in the product dev cycle with that one, we had a guy named Lou that was, just a monster for keeping us on schedule. And, again, with the MVP, really finding the basic features that we could get this product up and running with. It was a race to the finish line, or at least to the starting line, for who could be the first online copy center. I remember it was back at the Yale Club in New York City. Paul Orfalea, the founder of Kinko's, was giving a talk there. And this was while we were still in development, but we were getting real close to production. And I actually went there. And one little trick also, when you know that somebody's speaking, even like Dave Parker last week, when you know somebody's speaking, a speaker will always go check out the room before they get there. And so if you go a half hour early, you're probably going to be in the room with them, and you're the only two people in the room. And once they're set up, they've got 15 minutes to talk to you. So I did that with Paul Orfalea, who was the founder of Kinko's and still ran Kinko's when we were launching Mimeo.
That is a great tip.
What's that? Oh, good. Okay. So with Paul, he and I talked for 15 minutes, and he started putting his arm around me, talking to his vice presidents. Hey, this is my new best friend, Dave Meadows. Well, it was most embarrassing because they had no idea that I was launching, Mimeo, which was going to be their big competitor. So I found out that they weren't really near to launching where we were, the online side of things. And I also did this with the other competitors that I had read about in research. And, a little bit of, I guess, secret shopping. I found that NowDocs, which is out of business now, I'm pretty sure, was going to be launching on February 7th of 2000. And we hadn't planned to launch till like the 14th. So I moved our launch date up to February 2nd. So we got in the newspapers before they did. And that was pretty cool. So always keep track of your competitors. But really since this is a talk about MVPs, being able to have a really simple MVP and get it out the door, and even if you're, some of the press is negative, you're getting exposure and you're working with your clients to, kind of get the best product. You might keep it under wraps. We kept Mimeo under wraps for a year and a half before people knew about what we were doing. So depending on how tight your product is, how, patentable, how secretive you need to be, it's mostly in the execution. But there are occasions where you really want to keep a lid on what you're working on. So those are, U.S. Center for Entrepreneurship. Let me click over to some classes here. So the U.S. Center for Entrepreneurship, I worked with guys like, you probably read the book Guerrilla Marketing. There are 20 million copies of Guerrilla Marketing, so that's J. Conrad Levinson. You may have heard of BNI, which is like a Chamber of Commerce, but there are 5,000 chapters around the world, and Ivan Meisner was the founder of that. Our class, Financial Statements and Reports, Lita Epstein, she wrote The Complete Idiot's Guide to Accounting, also Reading Financial Reports for Dummies. So I had a lot of good, solid, people in the industry, in their specific, gurus or subject matter experts that had our classes, that taught our classes. But I could drive traffic to the website because the name was solid, U.S. Center for Entrepreneurship. The look was okay. You'd click on one of these classes and be able to go, learn about what you want. But I couldn't get the traction. People weren't buying the product. And so there are a lot of lessons to that. I have in my peer advisory board, one of the guys owns weighttraining.com. he had a customer come to his website 200 times before buying a $5 subscription. So the lesson with that is give away, you want to have your funnel for people where you're getting them to sign up for different things that are free, you're collecting information, you're giving them a free report, and whatever you can do to keep engaging them, because that one person went 200 times to their website before signing up just for a $5 subscription. So in this situation with U.S. Center for Entrepreneurship, I would now absolutely build out a page like this, and when people click on that Register Now button, instead of going to a page that's going to be a checkout page, that's where I would pop up and say, hey, thank you so much for your interest in our product or service. This is just a test today. We'd love to have you as a beta tester. And that's how I personally would get some of my initial feedback, because you can see their actions on Google Analytics and track them, what they're doing. So I'm happy to answer some questions, but those are just some of the basic things right now with what I would consider my product development and doing the MVPs that I've done in the past.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Let me unmute everybody. Unmute all. Okay. Does anyone have questions?
I just wanted to say thanks a lot, David. I joined just a little bit late, but I heard most of it, and it's all excellent advice. I really appreciate it.
Good. Thank you.
And I know the group appreciates it.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Hey, David, it's Jeremy. How's it going?
Hey.
Hey, so you know about my product. Actually all my products I have, but in terms of working, just reaching out to everybody last week. So I started contacting some blogs and just kind of reaching out and just offering services for free. And so is that a methodology that you would say would be a good one to do?
Is this for Digital Rights Defender?
Yeah, so I reached out and I said, hey, this is the service, and it's not the functionality is not all there yet, but what kind of features would you like? And once it's up and running, I'll just for giving feedback, you have I'll provide free services for you for X amount of time.
Well, and if you did that, you would also have some excellent testimonials. So testimonials are imperative on a website. And if you can get video testimonials, those are going to show up faster in search results. So when you have video testimonials, not only is that excellent on your website, but that also for SEO is going to be showing up usually more rapidly than other content. So I'm a fan of giving away things for free in the start. If you know that, depending on how far along you are, but if you're trying to get some traction and get a user base, sure, let them try it. We with Mimeo would give $100 free trials. That was something that they had to give us their document. They're giving their document to people they don't know, and so we gave them $100 free trials, and over time, got our user base kind of up and running, worked out some of the kinks, and I think that gives you the opportunity to work out some of your kinks as well. So, Michael, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in the freemium model. So, give them a taste, and give them something valuable, and then convert them. There's also there's a couple of also ways to test your offering and your pricing to see what your conversions might be. There's a bunch of different sites out there that allow you to do that. One of them that comes to mind is 5secondtest.com, if you heard of that. So people will give you their first impressions of whatever landing page you send them to. Say, boom, and that's what, and they will. Some of them will be harsh, like, I don't have a clue what you're doing here, and others will say, I kind of get it, but it's boring or it's text heavy. So there's all kinds of ways to get feedback to see if the offer, the call to action, is resonating with your audience. And then there's sites that will actually get people to to take the freemium offer and give you feedback on whether they would convert or not. So there's all kinds of great tools and services out there. No excuse to have boring, lousy landing pages or bad offers.
Right. And with that, Jeremy, you know, as Michael was trying to say, some of the split tests also, you know, you can do split tests as well. And once you've got a split test running, there's a site called StumbleUpon. I don't know if it's still up and running, but I had a friend of mine use that, and I think for $25, he had, you know, a ton of people visit his site. And so with your product, that product can really relate to anybody, although if you can find some niches and go, you know, heavy into the niches, that'd be awesome. But StumbleUpon might be one area where you can drive some traffic to it and get some user interaction, some user feedback with pretty low cost.
What did you say? I'm sorry, what was that last one you said to try what?
It's called StumbleUpon or Stumbled Upon.
StumbleUpon, okay.
Yeah. It's StumbleUpon. I actually, it's one site that I visit every day.
Oh.
StumbleUpon.com. It's a great resource. I mean, you will stumble upon stuff you had no clue was out there, but it is a good way to pre-register with the editors and see if they'll feature you. But you know, you put in the keywords and categories of sites that you're interested in, entrepreneurship, whatever it might be, copyright, and they will stumble you upon the best of the best on the internet. It's a great. I highly recommend it. That was a good call, David.
All right, cool.
All right. Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other last questions? I do want to emphasize the handwritten postcards. You can. I have gained more traction with people by sending them a. This is more like B2B type business or any of your relationships, but in the people that I reach out to, I usually, you know, after a meeting, either before a call or after a call, you know, things like that. I have a postcard that I just, you know, handwrite, and that gets right to them. So I want to emphasize that one because I've had a lot, or handwritten letters too. Everybody thinks that it's okay to send an email these days as a thank you, and you can do that. It's acceptable, but you go the extra mile by having a handwritten note, if it's a note card as well, and you'll find that you get a lot more respect with that. So just a thought. One thing that I'll mention also, Jeff and I, we met on, let's see, Startup Weekend about 6 or 7 months ago. So we were in the Startup Weekend, and we started working on this server score idea. This is probably, I don't know if he ever talked about it with you guys, but one thing that I also want to emphasize again is just putting your schedule down, putting your due dates and goals for yourself. We had a lot of meetings that we met with, you know, different folks and things like that. And when you're, you know, starting your business idea, you're going to have so many different pivots and so many times that you might find that, you know what, this isn't the business I'm going to start. And that's okay. But the important thing is to find that out as fast as possible, because the faster you find it out, then you can either get traction moving, you know, heavy into it, or dump it and move into something else. And so if you can adhere to, you know, some sort of schedule, it'll make you feel so much better and get you so much closer to your end goal of getting your product or service off the ground. Bobby, what's your product?
We develop visualization software for builders and for real estate agents, and we can change their static home plans into kind of a virtual interactive model.
Cool. And are you up and running?
I am. I'm up and running. Actually, I know your products. I recognize them. We actually were the first home design software programs under a broader fund called 3D Home Interior Exterior. So I think we were on the same shelves together back then.
Oh, cool, cool.
I recognize that. But yes, we're up and running. We just, everything you've said, I have felt. We started a CD-ROM product technology, and, you know, I sold through the channel. I got my $39 or $59 a box, and everybody filled out the registration and nailed it. And obviously, you know, I changed the business model, and then 3 years ago moved all the technology on the cloud and started working on the cloud. And it's been really interesting trying to figure out I mean, I knew the product sold. We sold about 950,000 boxes of software in about 40,000 retail stores. So I know it sold. I just could not figure out how to change the revenue model on the cloud. Totally changed. So I give it away free to the consumers. So the consumers can use what they used to pay for free. But I have had probably spent the last 3 years trying to figure out exactly how to find a niche, how to use this, and then how to improve that industry. And it's, you know, the building industry is just coming out of being dormant. These guys have had a terrible last 5 years, and homes are being sprouted up now right and left, and these guys have got money to burn, and they don't know yet, you know, how to be able to sell these home plans and listings that are online. So we literally hook a kind of a virtual interactive app, and you can change wall colorings, add flooring, actually virtually remodel something very quickly on the fly.
Neat, awesome. Yeah, kind of like when you, same concept of a little bit of Lowe's, where they have the My Lowe's, where you can kind of do a couple things there, but it's actually building your house in this case.
Yeah,
So
this one actually we take the models, the builder's models, if they're like just regular home plans, and we actually render them, recreate them, and then inside you have up to 6 pictures, so you can actually see the kitchen and pick out your kitchen cabinets. You can choose Sherwood-Williams or Behr paint, what colors you like. You can see tile floor versus wood floors, and you've got all those different options that are tied into the application. And these builders and designers kind of use it, again, to qualify the customer. It improves the design time, and it also is a lead generation program. So when they have it online or the Apple Store, people will submit their information, and then that becomes a lead to that company.
Cool. So. Good stuff. Well, what's the website for you?
The particular one that's free is showoff.com, SHOWOFF.com.
Oh, wow. That's a good one. Cool. I will check that out.
Yeah, that's the free app. You know, this product we have done that I just told you about builders and real estate agents is exactly what you explained. I literally put together a prototype in about 3 weeks, quick and down and dirty prototype. It wasn't even through the Apple Store yet. We actually were just under development, and went in and pitched it and sold the first customer, and I actually went in to get their opinion and sold it. And so I knew I was pretty much on. So since then, I've been going to the same customers, and I'm walking away with orders.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So we're scrambling, trying to pull that the product now into a real app.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, I see that I'm coming up to 10 minutes till 8, so I'm going to need to run. But I appreciate the opportunity to share some of my experiences. I know it was just a tiny bit, but I'm available to share in the future as well. And the next time you guys get together in person, if it's in the Bay Area, I'll be happy to show up and have some fun with you guys as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you, David.